Oh, welcome to a special edition of AVfM Radio. It's going to be a wonderful Saturday. We've got a rally going on in Toronto this morning, and we are looking forward to bringing you live updates. I sincerely hope that they're capable of getting some audio going, because we've got a file to play from Warren Farrell to the rally, and we would like to hear some of the speeches and provide those to our live listeners. This morning we've got your host, James Huff. Co-hosting with us is Erin Pizzey.
Hello.
Robert O'Hara, our AVfM News Director.
Good morning, everybody.
And we've got a special guest on today, Mike Buchanan.
Yes, hello, James.
Mike, why don't we start off with exactly what it is you're doing over there in the UK?
Okay, well, I lead a political party, the only men's and boys' rights party in the UK, called Justice for Men and Boys and the Women Who Love Them. We launched the party about 7 months ago with the stated intention of contesting 30 parliamentary seats at the next general election, which is May 2015. We've just got funding for our fourth candidate, and we're still hopeful that we'll get 30. So it's going very well.
Excellent. And you haven't been the targets of any massive demonstrations yet.
No, I haven't. It's interesting you say that. I was at the National Conference for Men and Boys a couple of days ago, and I took along a video camera. You know, I'm still hopeful, that there's a British equivalent to Big Red. But disappointingly, nobody there. no demonstrators. It's kind of interesting. I think I just saw that Miles Grove, there wasn't much opposition to that or demonstrators there. So I think they're kind of realizing that these demonstrations are PR disasters for them, absolute disasters.
Well, they're not capable of keeping control of the message.
No.
They're
showing themselves for who they really are.
They are indeed.
Which is basically a bunch of hate-filled bigots, and there's
Yeah.
no there's no hiding it when people like Big Red and really every single protest up until now has demonstrated this in Toronto, and they're finally whoever their leadership is telling them to shut up and stay off camera.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, if you go back to the Andrea Dworkin days, I think feminism really struggled because people saw, as you say, who they're for, and when they decided strategically to go below the radar, that was sadly a very strong strategy, because people just do not get, 99% of people anyway, just do not get who's driving all these agendas, because they just keep off the radar. And I'm sure your analysis is right. We won't see. I think they've got to find other ways to attack us, and they're struggling.
Well, I doubt that they will be able to successfully do so. The reason being is because they've already gotten the ball rolling with the men's rights movement. We've almost reached that critical mass. There's no real turning back at this point.
Right.
So, they harped and pushed. They came out in the light. They set themselves up for failure in the long run, and we've ended up garnering so much attention that even if they go back and hide, even if they go back and hide, we're still moving forward with our message.
Yeah. I don't see what they can do. I mean, there are efforts to censor on Facebook and whatever else, but they're. I mean, perhaps in another age before the internet, they could have got. They could have had more impact. But you can't stop a movement like this in the internet age. It can't be done.
No, not at all. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the trials and tribulations that you've actually had to go through in order to establish yourself over there?
Okay, well, about 18 months ago, after having written 3 books about feminism, I decided it was time to try and do something a bit more practical to fight feminism. And I always make the distinction between gender feminism and equity feminism. Though again, I don't think many people get that. Even the majority of women who call themselves feminists, they're really equity feminists. But it's a distinction that we keep having to make. Anyway, so I formed the Anti-Feminism League with a view to having a blog about all sorts of feminist issues. But it wasn't long before I realised that sites like A Voice for Men, of which I'm a huge fan, by the way, were kind of doing stuff that was so strong and so many great contributors that I needed to do something a bit more practical with my time. So as a former businessman for 30 years, I set up something called the Campaign for Merit in Business. And the whole point of the Campaign for Merit in Business was to try and persuade the government to drop its direction of travel for pushing more women onto corporate boards. There's plenty of evidence now that when you drive up the proportion of women on corporate boards, regardless of merit, because it always is regardless of merit, then the impact is to reduce corporate financial performance. So I started that campaign off. I engaged with House of Commons and House of Lords inquiries, and it was quite fascinating. I mean, at the end of the day, I expected the politicians, even conservative politicians, to be very much in favour of that direction of travel. What I hadn't expected was big business people and professional bodies all to be, if you like, stoking that boiler on that train, and it's still an incredible thing to me. But I think they all share a common interest in driving women into the workplace, and I guess a big business has come to the conclusion that it's willing to, in having more women in the workplace and the extra demand for their goods and services, that to allow a few women onto their boards, almost always as non-executive directors, was a small price to pay.
Interesting.
And so at the end of 12 months of making a lot of impact, in fact, even the Prime Minister, David Cameron, 18 months ago, routinely, and just every talk about women in business, he would say that having more women on boards leads to improved financial performance. And we were just relentless in asking, in putting forward Freedom of Information Act requests, and we just absolutely assaulted, in the polite way, anybody who claimed that more women on boards led to improved performance, because the evidence points in the other direction.
Well, it's got to be entirely merit based, and
yeah.
as long as you're simply choosing somebody for whatever external features they might happen to have, you're not guaranteed to have the type of quality personnel needed in leadership positions.
No, indeed. But the government put in a threat of gender quotas in 2015 if the FTSE 100 hadn't by that point achieved 25% female representation. Now, in 2010, before that threat came on, just 13%, 13% of new FTSE 100 director appointments were women. In 2012, the year after the threat came in, that had risen to 55%. And as I say, almost all were non-executive directors. This is a gravy train for women who wouldn't have a hope of getting onto FTSE 100 boards otherwise, just wouldn't have a hope.
Right.
But at the end of 12 months, we kind of won all the arguments, but the train carried on in the same direction. So I thought, what do you do in a democracy when there's a policy direction of travel which is absolutely insane, and the government will not be moved? I thought, well, I sort of had a light bulb moment. I said, will you form a political party? So that's what we decided to do, and the whole area of merit in business is just one of 20 areas that we have in our consultation document, and I suspect our final manifesto will have nearer 25.
Interesting. Well, I have been made very aware due to the efforts of our European news director,
Yeah.
Lucien Valsen, about the EU attempting to impose quotas
Yeah.
on all their nation states.
Yeah.
How is the UK just pretty much following right along with that? I mean, is there a lot of support for that in the Parliament?
No. There's quite a bit of opposition to that, but the problem is homegrown, because all the 99% of politicians in the UK. So even if the EU didn't exist, that direction of travel would still be there. The thing that they resent is being told, or politicians resent, having the EU dictate in this area. But as I say, if the EU didn't exist, there'd be no practical difference. And the EU, I mean, there was an outstanding piece by Lucien. Well, all his pieces are outstanding, quite frankly. But a truly remarkable one in the last week or two about the intention of the EU to ban anti-feminist speech. Really just astonishing.
It really is.
I mean, it's not surprising, but it's because again, it's the same direction of travel. But my God, we have Orwell's 1984 here, don't we?
It truly is.
How do your constituents or the people you're getting out, and I'm sure you're doing a meet and greets and shake hands. Have you spoken to them about that aspect of what the EU is trying to do?
But people are absolutely appalled. But the EU is, as it always does, it wraps it up in saying that it's against hate crime. So it wraps in anti-feminism with anti-Semitism. There'll be talk in the background about Anders Breivik, the Norwegian guy who was an anti-feminist. So they're kind of saying they're trying to tar people like me and you guys with the same brush, and it's all very transparent. But there's no I see no opposition to it, and frighteningly no opposition from conservative politicians. They are just doing nothing.
Well, I think a lot of them are, even in the U.S. here, a lot of the conservative politicians are, in my mind, afraid to say exactly what it is they think, to actually stand upon the principles that they say define their position. And it seems like the more opposition that they seem to run across, the more they crumble, the more their silence becomes complicity in the problem.
Yeah, I mean, we're about to have a cabinet reshuffle, and it's been widely trailed that David Cameron is going to increase the proportion of women in his cabinet. I've got to say that the existing ones aren't exactly terrific, but this is 18 months from a general election, so it'll play well with the feminist lobbies.
Right.
But when you actually do the analysis, compared to the number of MPs in the party, women are already overrepresented in the cabinet. But no newspaper will cover that. It's really extraordinary. I mean, there's just media silence on such issues.
Well, I'm curious about those numbers. If you wouldn't mind going into them, of how the women are overrepresented in the cabinet.
Okay, women form. I don't have the exact numbers to hand, but women form a certain proportion of the MPs in the Conservative Party, and the proportion of women in the cabinet is already higher than that proportion. So, if you like, there's already been positive discrimination for women, and this is what Cameron wants to do as a feminist prime minister, is to just increase that overrepresentation yet further. There is no downside to a politician in favouring women in that way. It's one of the key reasons that we formed the party, because we want there to be a downside.
And I guess the next obvious question: how many of these women actually reached their position through the merit of, through their merits rather than just for the fact that they're women?
I'd say not many. I mean, there's an odd echo here of women who get to the top of FTSE 100 companies. and other major companies, proportion. I mean, of course, some of them are successful, but the failure rate of both FTSE 100 female chief executives and female cabinet ministers is considerably higher than that of their male counterparts. And you see people appointed to some women appointed to quite senior positions, when it would be utterly inconceivable that a man with so little experience and competence could possibly have got there. They really are struggling to find, competent women. That's the reality of it. I mean, if there were a whole bunch of very competent women, Cameron would have them in the cabinet already.
Right. So a lot of the people that you deal with on a regular basis I imagine, are pretty informed business owners, entrepreneurs, things of that nature. Now, what about your average?
Sorry, I've got to say no. I mean, the astonishing thing is that the business community just has not engaged.
Really?
Just has not. It has no interest in this. Even FTSE 100 companies, there's a threat of gender quotas, and they simply will not engage. In fact, there's an organisation called the 30% Club, which campaigns to drive up the proportion of women on boards, and about a third of FTSE 100 chairmen are members of that. I mean, they're in the driving seat. I'm not aware of a single executive in the FTSE 100 who has made a public statement complaining about this direction of travel.
I'm just curious as to how they cannot see that providing the best leadership rather than a gender quota on their boards would do better for them business-wise.
I think it goes back to, say, part of the whole package of the FTSE 100 wants women, the business community generally, should we say, wants women out of the home and working, because it depresses wage and salary levels across the economy and provides extra demand.
Well,
and some of them also are retailers, and you can bet your bottom dollar that if you run a retailer, you'd be really concerned about the feminists making a big fuss about the absence of women on your board. The feminists would really go to town, and you actually find it's interesting if you look at some sectors. It's the retail sector, in particular, has I think I'm right in saying has the highest proportion of female directors. But if you go into resource industries, mining and so oil and so on, there are very few or even no women there. Mm-hmm. But even those organisations will not engage with us. It's quite extraordinary. So after 12 months, I thought, well, hang on. I'm actually, I'm not earning any income from this. I'm trying to introduce meritocracy in the appointment of directors on FTSE 100 companies, and the FTSE 100 has no interest in that. It's beyond parody.
Wow. Well, I know that Robert O'Hara has. Oh, hold on just a moment here. Looks like we've got somebody from the rally. I recognize this number. I'm going to go ahead and bring them on.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Dean calling you from Toronto. How are you?
Dean, hello, good morning.
Hi, Dean.
Hi,
good
Dave.
morning, Erin. So good to hear your voice.
And yours.
Thanks to we've had all kinds of trouble getting phone reception out of here in Toronto into the States where we have to dial. But thanks to a gift from August Levenskold last night, he's put enough money on my phone, I can actually afford to call you all out and say hello this morning. And I'm actually going to go ahead and leave the line open while we're here.
Great.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Can you tell us what's happening right now, Dean?
Why doesn't Paul tell you what's happening right now?
Okay,
Talk
great.
to the guys on the radio. I don't know. Say hello.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Paul, how
Hello,
are you?
Paul.
Oh, we're on the radio now.
Yes, you're on the radio
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, apologies. There is a little bit of a late start going here. There's some issues with power that they're trying to get resolved. They're working on it now. People are showing up. We're getting a lot of things working right now, but it's a little bit busy, a little bit hectic.
That's to be expected, I'm sure.
Well, this is a first, so I'm sure that you guys will standardize the operation for future rallies.
Yeah, absolutely, we will, and thank everybody for bearing with us.
Well, we kind of want your perspective. Oh, yeah, we were wanting to
Paul
get.
had to go because he's busy trying to get things set up. I just thought I'd have him say hi to you.
Well,
Okay.
give us a little bit of perspective about the actual lecture last night.
About the lecture last night. Well, the hall was absolutely jam-packed with people. As I think I mentioned last night, it was all the seats were filled, and it was overflowing into the aisles. Miles Groff is not the most dynamic speaker, but he delivered a really quite powerful message about what the issues are facing young men, particularly on college campuses these days. The Q&A session afterwards also went remarkably well. I know I got in a question and a challenge for Professor Michael Kimmel and the likes of Hugo Schweitzer, who promised, who claim to be men's advocates, but teach and say really rather toxic, misandrous things, which is a point Dr. Gross seemed to appreciate. There were even feminists there asking questions, but amazingly, only a few of them, and no shrieking, no trying to dominate the narrative, just asking questions. In other words, doing this miraculous thing we've been looking for I don't know how many decades, taking part in the discussion like human beings. It was kind of nice.
Absolutely amazing. And I imagine that cafe filmed all of this, right?
They not only did they film it, but there was at least 3 other film crews there filming it. So I expect to see a lot. I don't know, I don't know how much of it's going to wind up on YouTube or when, but there was a huge number of people filming. There was a huge number of people filming outside before the event. Although I couldn't help notice the irony that when I got back to my hotel room that night, despite all the news coverage, there were only 2 stories on the news. One, people were upset because they found some house with 100 cats living in it, and they wanted to attack the owner for mistreating animals. And the other was a protest against a professor who said he preferred to read and study the literature written by men like himself. And so that was sexist. So that made the news, but we didn't, at least not yet. So apparently cats and professors who like reading books by men are a bigger issue. But I guess we've just come to expect that at least we're getting more and more people actually listening to our issues. I'm here at the park in Toronto. It's a lovely morning. I would say there's at least 100 people here by now, and more keep milling in. We were supposed to have power and a live video stream going over the internet, but we're having trouble. The loudspeaker, we don't have power, so we don't have the loudspeaker. So we've just got people holding signs, talking, and getting to know each other. And that's cool, too. Got a lot of signs.
Dean, Robert has a couple questions for you.
I'm interested in the media presence. I'm interested in the media presence both last night and today, if there is one now. Last night you said that there were a lot of film crews there, but you didn't say anything on the broadcast on the news later that night.
No, I did not.
But they did.
I might have been looking at the wrong station, so I may have missed it.
But there was they did expend, because that's not cheap to have crews out there filming. So obviously people are interested in what's going on. Whether or not the news directors are going to broadcast is a completely different story. But is there anybody there right now? Is there any news crews out there right now?
There is one news crew from Ryerson University, interestingly enough.
Interesting, yeah.
And the documentary filmmaker who is doing a filmmaker on A Voice for Men and the men's movement in general is also here. sitting there interviewing Karen Strawn right now.
Oh,
what a shock.
wonderful.
Everybody always wants to talk to her.
Right.
There's a reporter here from Vibe magazine.
Right.
Not the guy we made fun of, so that's cool. And there are several other people walking around with cameras and with notepads and recording devices. So I assume there are reporters from other publications here.
What kind of problems are they having with the power? What is there? Did no one think to make sure there was a power supply out there before the rally started? Or
I'm not sure. I didn't get the information on that. All I know is I arrived and they said we're having power issues.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh. A counter-protest may be arriving as we speak.
Oh,
Let me walk
awesome.
over toward them and see if I'm correct.
Take a buddy with you.
We'd be so disappointed if they didn't come. Oh, yeah, there's multiple
Danny
news
the
reporters here. Oh, yeah, and everybody's running. Let's see. Oh, yeah, all the cameras, including me now, of course. Okay, they're screaming pro-gay, pro-choice. Yeah, most of us, too. But anyway.
Hey, straight pro-choice for men. Straight pro-choice for men. Do that.
Pro-choice for men. All right, I'm going to actually walk away so that I don't get in trouble with these people. So here they come.
How many of them are there?
Let's see. I'm walking away to a safe spot first. Looks like a group of about 20 to 25, I would say.
Okay.
20 to 25 counter-protesters, I would say. And they're calling themselves Bash Back. B-A-S-H-B-A-C-K. So a group called Bash Bash is here. No, I don't like it. Let's see. Who else can I hand the phone to for a little bit? MRAs go away. There it is. We were looking for that yesterday. MRAs go away. My favorite. No.
I wouldn't even bother engaging them, Dean.
Well, yeah, we need someone to report to us what's going on.
Get used to it. Get used to it. All right, we're having some fun here now.
Hey,
they say we're anti-gay, guys. Are we anti-gay? Where is Andy Man? Yeah, tell that to our gay members, pal.
Dean.
Oh, thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the question is whether or not you guys are in any way going to attempt to engage them, or do you think it would be more productive to actually just ignore them and move on with the message of the rally itself? Oh, looks like we lost
Dean's
Dean.
dropped. Yeah. Well,
let's
hope everything's okay.
Oh boy.
Well, I hope that I hope that they get. I hope they get situated because but of course with no power, it's going to be kind of a false start, so to speak.
Be interesting.
Yeah, right.
So let's go ahead and move this around the table here. Erin, what are your impressions on this so far?
Well, I think they're playing a much more carefully stratified game than just turning up and screaming and shouting. I don't know who this group are. Why was Andy Mann's name brought up? Andy Mann. Because he's a colleague of mine. He represents a voice for men in London, and he had a real battle with the very, very radical feminists who essentially want euthanasia for all men and to kill small boys. But he's not at all anti-gay, at all. He's anti their attitude, particularly towards transsexual people, because they are vicious.
Right.
Again. Go ahead.
No, yeah. He made that quite clear whenever he took his group over to the London Centre and turned in all that information about the Rad Femmes.
Yeah. I just want to make that clear because nobody on A Voice for Men as anti-gay. Absolutely nobody that I know, anyway.
The charge of homophobia is a favorite tool by these people it's basically a smear is all it is, and it's overused now. By this point, people know, and people are going to know now just how foolish these people are. But it's one of these overused smears that these people use to try to derail a conversation and try to make us look like a bunch of a bunch of losers or a bunch of homophobes or a bunch of hateful people, and actually we're not. They're the ones who are hateful people.
Yeah, you know what I think is so strong as well? I mean, it never in the history of but I've been working on this anti-feminist battle for the last 40 years. I have never seen a group of men get together and determinedly stand up and fight back. I mean, I think this is truly historic.
There's no doubt that this is historic. This is the first time I can remember, and I should ask you this. Is this the first time you've ever seen any kind of actual physical demonstration by men's rights activists?
Yeah, apart from individual sort of, over custody issues. But right. I've never seen a group of men come together like this and actually fight back.
Right.
Because on the whole, men have really succeeded power to women, if you think about it. I mean,
sure.
Everything Mike's saying is so true about the business community. And the tragedy of all this is nobody, when they're talking about how our Prime Minister wants to force women into work, who looks after the children? The children actually lose out at the end of all this, don't they?
Sure. Okay, hold on, folks. We've got both Dean Esme and Pine Tree, and I believe Pine Tree is there at the rally. I'm going to bring them on both at the same time. Pine Tree does have a low battery.
Hello, Pine Tree is here. I don't see him.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. So I am at the rally, and it kind of started off slow, but a big group of demonstrators have already arrived. So we are basically having, I guess, a little bit of mayhem with the protesters right now. But
a couple of us, including me and Dan Perrins and Eric Duckman from Men's Rights Edmonton, went over to the Bashback anti-MRA protest and got in the middle and started chanting with them. That was kind of fun. And then we started asking them where they were getting the anti-gay stuff from. And they couldn't answer me. They just started chanting again. Where are you getting the anti-gay stuff from? Have you talked to any of our gay writers? Have you read our site? And they just started chanting again.
Once again,
you know what? I'm going to miss it.
More than likely, they were gathered by some mastermind and simply busted.
Are the police there, James? Are there much police?
The police are there, and the police actually asked the group to separate. So, we separated.
Okay.
Good.
Pine Tree, where are you? I don't see you.
Pine Tree dropped out. So
we're probably going to keep dropping in and out, guys. Sorry, it's just the way the connectivity is out here.
Not a problem. I think engagement with these people is probably not really the way to go. They're just going to do what they always do. I would much rather see us stand on the substance of what is being put out with the rally itself.
You're probably right. I saw Eric in there, and I thought I'd better not leave him alone. But the police went ahead and asked us to walk away and asked them to walk away, so that's what happened.
Good. Okay, good. Good. Let the police do their job. Don't do what they tell you to do. I don't think they're going to ask anybody.
That's exactly right.
And
hey,
just
Karen,
like
you want to say hi to the guys on the radio?
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Karen. How are you?
Hey, Karen. Lovely to hear you.
Oh, hi, Erin. How you doing? I thought for a while that the protesters weren't going to show up, and then they did, and I think some of their rhetoric is heterosexuals stop abandoning your kids. I don't even know how to respond to that. So, oh yeah, you did actually, because he put his hand on me. Yeah, Paul's in trouble. I'm gonna go report him to the police over there because he actually budged me over on the bench, and that's abusive, and I'm not gonna stand for it.
No.
But yeah, I just these people, I don't know where. Oh wow, Nick is standing with his men's rights sign, sandwich board, right behind the guy with the bullhorn, right among the group.
I cannot wait to see video of this. I cannot.
I think he feels invincible with that thing on. It's like Kevlar or something. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, it just makes him unbalanced.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like when we were walking to the Walk a Mile in her shoes event, and he was wearing it, it flipped up in the wind, and like I almost got brained. So I mean, that thing it can be dangerous, extremely dangerous. That sandwich board. So, but yeah, no, I'm gonna give you guys back to Dean because I'm just mesmerized by these protesters, and I want to listen more.
All right.
So,
Have fun.
all right, nice to talk to you guys, and here's Dean.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye, Karen.
Hey, guys. So,
Yeah.
apparently we're at a slight disadvantage because even though they're a smaller group, they have a megaphone, and ours still isn't set up and working yet.
Oh, jeez.
Well,
sorry.
yeah, that might make it a little bit difficult to take care of the speech portions of what you guys are wanting to do, and I hear sirens in the background there. What's going on?
I don't think it's related. I think we're just in a busy, crowded street. So these bashback people are fascinating. They appear to mostly be identifying as gay because gay feminists. They seem to be identifying as that, which is like, okay.
Are they mostly men?
I don't quite know how that goes together, but okay. And apparently we are white, privileged, heterosexual. Oh my God, Ed. Yeah, what's wrong with being white and privileged? I don't have any privileges, pal. How about give me a few of those privileges? You should get them back. So yeah, okay. So we're all basically just milling around, and I'm trying to find someone for you to talk to besides me.
All right. Well, any guess as to when they're going to get the facilities running so we can get the show on the road there?
Let me see if I can find Attila and ask him. There's more camera crew here. I don't know who they are, though. I keep finding people with professional recording equipment, but they don't have identification
ask them if they have a power source. ask the media if they have a power source.
Source. Can we borrow their power source? Hey, where's Attila, Paul, guys? Do you know? We just don't know at this point what the situation is with the...
Oh. Yep, we just lost it.
They need to get their act together with getting stuff together, or else it's going to be a wash. But it's still fun listening to them. I'm still extremely out there.
Just the fact that we're getting all these people in the same place at the same time is amazing. I mean, even if they don't have a megaphone, I just the meet and greet alone, I would love to be there.
Actually, so would I.
Yes.
I think it's wonderfully historic, and I just hope that there's some good points made, and it makes it to the general media, because those points needed to be made by men about men, and not just this silence when women, like the radical feminists, make their extremely vitriolic and man-hating comments, and there's just a deadly silence coming back. I think this is the healthiest thing I have seen for a very long time.
I would agree. I'm very excited about it too. This is really as small as this may be, and as disorganized or whatever's going on over there. It's still historic.
Yeah, but it's a beginning. It's a beginning.
Yeah, it's a first.
Yeah, and it's a beginning. As other men see men standing up for their rights, it gives them the courage to move forward.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter how small it is. It's just so important in terms of men suddenly realizing that there are other men out there that they can join and be compatriots with. They don't have to be isolated.
Yeah, and it's important that there are news crews there. So this is going to be people are going to see this all over the world, hopefully.
Yeah,
if it gets broadcast. If it gets broadcast, well, we're certainly going to talk about it here. There's no doubt about that.
Sure.
Just the sight of this on the news will send a lot of our opponents into a panic. And I can't help but think that there are feminists all over the world right now who are paying attention to what's going on and saying, "Oh my God, this is going to be something we're going to have to contend with." And I think as Mr. Buchanan said, they don't have a strategy for this right now. They don't know. They don't know how to.
No,
do
they don't. Can I just say that?
Sure.
I mean, perhaps this is our Rosa Parks moment.
Maybe. Or it's a first moment for us. Really
looks like we've got Dean back on the line again.
Okay.
Stand behind me with your signs.
Dean, you're on the air. Dean Esme, you are on AVfM Radio.
Dean, you there?
Well, it's showing up in the bar there, but we've got nothing. I'm going to go ahead and leave it live, at least until he decides to hang up and reconnect, or maybe finds a better connection spot.
We have power. We have
good
speakers beginning, and I'll let you guys hear events as transpire.
Okay. Have they figured out a way of getting those speeches to us?
Yeah, if they can figure out a way to get an audio feed to us, that'd be great. Tell them to call in.
I welcome you to an historic moment, a gathering of men and women to express the concerns of men and boys in crisis. I'm
guessing this is Warren Farrell speaking, correct, Dean?
This is Attila Windsor.
Okay.
Many people that have from as far away as California, Dakota, Michigan, Texas, and elsewhere in the United States, as well as Edmonton and Canada and many other Canadian provinces. This, ladies and gentlemen, is an historic moment. Never before has there been a gathering of this magnitude to support the need of men and boys' issues. We have got serious problems. And I beg the question, as those who oppose our voice, not understanding why. Why are they opposing us when what we are doing is something positive for the betterment of not only men and boys, but society as a whole? Why would these people travel this incredible distance on this historic day? It certainly isn't for any kind of a malicious consideration. We're doing it out of compassion for the need that men and boys are facing. In Canada, 8 men commit suicide every single day. 2 women commit suicide every single day. Its disproportion is a clear indication of the stresses that men are facing. Our education system is no longer hospitable to boys even as early as kindergarten. Our education system is now geared to make it hospitable for the way women think. And that's fine. But we can't be stepping on men and boys in order to get there. What we need to do is to bring public awareness to the issues that we are seeing. people that oppose us, I do not understand why the malicious attack. Our event page was absolutely brutalized. There must have been 300 or more spam attacks. Posts that were of decent nature were reported as abusive, and our event page was absolutely destroyed. But we are here nonetheless. We're here today because we have a reason to be here today. Because men and boys are in crisis. I have been working in this area, advocating for the rights of and here we go. Idle attacks, things that are absolutely without merit. It is just unbelievable that this sort of thing is even going on. Our issues are real. Our concerns are real. I have been looking at what is the problem within our education system, our legal system, for 8 years. And it is crystal clear that the problems for men and boys are real. I would like to turn the microphone over to Paul Elam of A Voice for Men for some words.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Elam, and I'm a men's rights activist. This better. Okay. There is a lot of questions that go on about even the words men's rights. This is also a crisis of rights. When we look at our family courts, what's happening to our children in there being ripped away from their fathers, their right to have the stability of a father in their lives is being violated. The rights of men for reproductive rights are violated and ignored. And I also, for our friends back here, want to say thank you for appearing on behalf of all the writers for A Voice for Men, including our gay and lesbian and transgender writers for the site. Their voice is being heard too. This is a historic day. I have never been at a gathering like this before. I have never seen a crowd gathered. I've seen crowds put together, some small ones for fathers' rights, for family courts, but I've never seen a gathering like this out of concern for the general state of affairs for men and boys in this culture. And as Attila said, we are in a state of crisis. Our boys are falling out of school from grade school to grad school. Their futures are being compromised by a lack of education, by being marginalized in the workforce, by being marginalized in the workplace, by being marginalized in society. And the sad reality is that the most common response to discussing their issues is that. This is why your presence here is so important today. This is why you are a voice for men. Because if we don't stand up and speak, those are the only people that are going to be heard. And it's time for that to end. It's time for us to quit apologizing for being for men's rights. It's time for us to quit apologizing for being men. It's time for us to quit apologizing for caring about what happens to men and boys. This is real simple stuff, people. If you don't care, more power to you. You're a part of the regular world that has ignored what's going on with men and boys to the point that Miles Graff predicted last night that in 50 years the last bachelor's degree will be issued to a male in this country. And the response we get to being concerned about that is this. We're not doing this anymore. What I would like to invite you all to do is to consider, regardless, I know that there are people that take exception to some of the things that we do with A Voice for Men. Join us anyway.
step up anyway. Let's set our differences aside, because if we don't stick together, that's who we're making happy. This is important. You are the first people I've ever seen in a public gathering of this nature to step up and be counted for men and boys. Please, the next time we do this, and there will be a next time, bring a friend with you. Ask your friend to bring a friend. Bring your family members, your children, your fathers, like a prayer house. I didn't prepare a speech today either. I didn't even think about it. I knew what I had to say was simple and to the point. Stand up. The men matter. Men matter. Men matter. Thank you.
Wow.
That we have just witnessed an historic moment. We have witnessed a very, very important moment in history. This is definitely going to be a seminal moment. It's going to be a watershed moment for our movement. There's no doubt about it. It's like Erin says, it's very humble. It's very very simple, but it's there, and this is going to mean big things in the future.
My concern, can you hear me?
Beautifully.
Yes.
Okay, my concern is now that they will move from the streets, they will withdraw and hide, and the work that they've been doing very quietly, which, as you said, Mike, creating a situation where anybody talking against feminism are actually guilty of hate crime. Now, they've already got proposals which have been or about to be ratified by Sweden, Norway, well, anywhere where they're already very much socialist, feminist governments anyway. And then the next it'll go to the UN. It'll be pushed through by people like Hillary Clinton. And one of the things that is so frightening about all this, so now they've had 40 years to put themselves into positions of power. They're global in a way that the men's movement is not nearly. We have to make sure they cannot put us in a situation that anybody criticizes them is then guilty of a criminal offense, because then most men won't dare because they'd lose their jobs.
This is where I really believe that the idea of peaceful civil disobedience to tyranny is important. If and we could be 2 or 3 years off, knowing how the EU works, if this type of proposal actually goes through, then we will have to cross that bridge when we get there, and more than likely, the only way is going to be peaceful civil disobedience.
I agree. But I don't think the other side's peaceful or have any intention of peace. They're highly, highly organized, and they're global, and they're in a lot of other countries.
Well, one thing's for sure, they certainly do not have any intention of respecting constitutional rights or the right to privacy or freedom of speech or anything like that. They've been demonstrated over and over and over again their contempt for these concepts. And it's interesting you mentioned Hillary Clinton, because I'm telling you right now, she is going to run for president in the next presidential election.
Yeah, I know that.
It's going to happen. And people, I mean, there's a lot of people in this country, both men and women, who have always been very suspicious of her because she's a very, very awkward personality. I think she's a dysfunctional personality myself. But she is going to run for president, and she is going to, and she's going to have the full backing of the Democratic Party behind her. And there's something very, very scary going on here in the U.S., and that is that both the Republican and the Democratic Party are, in fact, working for the same people. We have, in this country, and this sounds like a paranoid rant, but it's not, there is a group of very wealthy bankers who have basically taken over our political process, and they've supported over and over again these initiatives for the NSA, the Republican Party. They were the people who were the architects of the NSA's plan to be able to catalog every single communique that people do email and whatever. And now we're going to have Hillary Clinton running for president. What do you think is going to happen? This is a woman who has for 40 years been a diehard feminist, and she's tried to conceal it. She's tried to hide it on several occasions. People are smarter than that, but the thing is the American people can't be complacent, and they need to be fully aware of what that would mean unless the full extent of what these people are about is exposed.
And I promise you, regardless of whether she gets in office or not, it's still going to end up being business as usual.
Absolutely.
Well, I think this is going to be the difference. You have huge. It's a billionaire business. Feminism. It's been, the taxpayers have been pouring money into feminism around the world, and at this precise moment, and I don't know if you agree with me, Mike, there's no money in the men's movement. There's no resources for men. Nothing from the ground to where a man can die because he can't get into any sort of a refuge, to where men can't even afford to get together because they can't afford a hall. In a sense, we're now just seeing the men's movement like a very small child beginning to try to grow. And you've got other men against you. That's my problem. As you said, Mike, where is the businessmen standing up and saying, we don't want second-rate women being parachuted into our businesses? They're not.
No, you're absolutely right. But, I mean, one of the things that surprised us, Erin, was that my campaigns had a few donations prior to us forming the party. But as soon as we formed the party and we had a pretty easy to understand strategy, money started to come in, and it didn't come in from people with who had much to spare. We had a donation of a week's wages from a guy on the minimum wage, and we've had we've even had donations of £1, but we had £100 from a student the other day. We've now financed 4 candidates, and the last campaign for £1,000 was for 30 days, and we got there, I think in about 25 or 24, and it is definitely snowballing. It is definitely snowballing. People kind of get it. That
that's excellent.
There has to be some money. There has to be some money here. Without money, we're powerless.
I think that's true.
I'd like to remind listeners we are AVFM is in the middle of our fundraising drive, fall fundraising drive, and I don't want to speak just on behalf of AVFM. Any men's rights organization needs your money. The National Coalition for Men here in the U.S., A Voice for Men London needs your money. Fathers and Families, they need your money. A Voice for Male Students, they need your money. We need money to get this thing started, and no one likes asking for money, but we got to. Please, we're breaking serious ground here. We need money.
I totally agree, and it's the reason that I'm personally a donor to A Voice for Men. I think it's possibly the most important resource in the men's human rights movement globally. I'm just a huge fan, I don't know what more I can say really. I think you've absolutely got the finger on the pulse of what needs to be done.
I'm a firm believer in individuals taking responsibility within their own communities. I've been talking to people for almost 2 years now about actual boots on the ground in your neighborhood, doing what you can. Just take over a block, one block, the block that you live on, and walk around and get to know people and start putting out the message. Spend $10, $15 yourself to pull out pamphlets or advertisements for various men's rights sites and put them in mailboxes or hand them out to people. You don't have to wear a sandwich board like Nick does, but I mean it's these tiny things cumulatively that add up. And for every negative response you get, you'll probably get 3 or 4 completely neutral responses, and the rest, it gets the gears turning inside their head.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is very new to people because at the end of the day, I mean, in the UK at least, there hasn't been, as far as I'm aware, so much as one article in a mainstream newspaper or periodical in 30 years critiquing gender feminism.
Do you think, Mike, in my experience, it's because majority of women who are left to cover this sort of thing, women journalists, I've found to my cost the majority of them are radical feminists themselves.
I totally agree, but we're starting to see. I mean, I don't know if you know, Erin, but there's going to be a BBC Three TV documentary in the new year, and there's a very interesting I won't name her, but a very interesting female producer of that.
Yeah,
and she's really, really smart.
Good, excellent.
And she, I suspect the whole tone of the thing might still be pro-feminist, but she's going to give a voice to a number of people, and I'd like to bet that the people watching that, they're going to think, what is an anti-feminist? How could you be against equality? Because I mean that's kind of still where we are, isn't it?
Well, yes, this idea, but then the problem with all that is that it was such a Trojan horse, the whole of the women's movement. People thought, because they said it was a movement about women and for women, it was nothing of the sort. It was a Marxist movement. What frightens me most of all is that Cameron, who is our Prime Minister, first thing he did was to praise single parents and talk about fickle fathers.
Oh, yes, on Father's Day as well.
That's right. And now he is driving women out of their own homes, forcing them into work, and actually destroying our children. In our country, you have to remember Harriet Harman. She has been a man-hater since the day she got her seat in Parliament. She is the one who in 1990 wrote a paper that said, in the future, the family will be women and children. And they have all worked towards this moment. They're almost there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't know if you saw the report in the papers just 2 days ago about some analysis that showed that 200,000 stay-at-home mothers have entered the workplace in the last 2 years.
It's shocking.
And that's a lot more than entered it in the preceding 15 years, which included 3 Labour administrations. Conservative. Sorry.
It's okay. I was working.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I lived there for something like 6 years. I also had a refuge there. In my area, of all the homes, I was a grandmother at that time with my grandchildren and my family. I was about the only one at home full time because everybody else, all the women on my estate, had all gone out to get jobs, leaving the children coming home, latchkey kids, and then I saw young children, 8, 9, 10, 11, drinking. And then that was becoming a problem because there was nobody at home.
Good God.
Well, that's going to be the future.
Yeah.
Nobody home. No hearth, no home.
Well, folks, I'm going to break in here. We do have our intrepid adventurer in Toronto calling back in again.
Good.
Anyhow, thank you so much. That's it for me. And I'm going to hand the mic off to the next person who wants to speak.
Thank you, Karen. At this point in time, I would like to invite Adam McPhee of Cafe, and he would like to have a few words for us. Do you guys mind just clearing out of the way? Because I'd actually like to address the protesters directly.
Just bring the mic close to your mic.
So I have a text here from one of my trans colleagues. So if you guys want to talk over me, you'll be silencing a trans voice. I work in the LGBT community. I work with the People with AIDS Foundation, predominantly with gay men. So if you want to claim I'm homophobic, why don't you come by my workspace and tell all the gay men I work with about how homophobic I am when I'm helping them with food, when I'm helping them with housing, when I'm helping them with their suicidal issues. my trans colleague mentioned, I have issues with women being lumped with trans. This is in regard to talking about a trans space and a trans women in trans center. I have issues with women being lumped with trans. People assume you can lump. Sorry. People assume you can lump two marginalized groups together and everything is fine. I can't even count how many women in trans spaces I either don't feel comfortable in as a trans man or just would not choose to go to merely because I'm automatically outed. Plus, I've experienced more oppression in women's space, specifically queer women's spaces, than I have amongst any other community. I think it's important to make all spaces safe and welcoming and not about assuming one group is able to relate more. We all have the ability to be judgment and exclusionary. It's about how we work together and not assuming where people feel more comfortable. Sorry, I'm looking at the microphone. Furthermore, at a meeting the other day, one of my clients mentioned that they had been contemplating suicide for a year. They were not seeking help until someone spoke out to them and said, hey, you need to get help, you need to deal with your own stuff. At our bike rally, which is to raise money for People's Aid, and it's our biggest fundraiser there is, he gave a speech in which he talked about how he struggled with depression. And when you're on HIV, when you have HIV, you take a huge amount of drugs. There's a reason it's called a cocktail. There's a ton of drugs that you have to take. So he did not want to take any pills on top of that. So he did not go to seek help initially. He did not go to get the antidepressants that he needed. When he finally did, he was wondering, why did I wait so long to do it? He was contemplating suicide till that moment. When he outed his story to another queer man, a whole collection of them, one spoke out and said, hey, I was contemplating suicide too, but now I'm not. When we talk about men's issues, we talk about gay men's issues. We talk about black men's issues. We talk about Asian men's issues. We talk about fathers, sons, brothers. We talk about all men. We are not exclusionary. We have women's voices here. Hi, Karen. We are not exclusionary at all. You guys are trying to stifle our voices. You are stopping men from talking. If you stop men from talking about suicide, you are encouraging suicide of men. So if you guys want to keep protesting this, you are encouraging suicide. To say nothing of you're staying on a veterans memorial while you're protesting us, and who knows how many of those men died for just being sent off, being conscripted, what kind of troubles they dealt with. You guys are protesting men's issues, which are valid issues. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very thankful that Cafe had a voice here. And as you heard, we are here together. It's a common cause, a common issue. Men and boys includes everyone. And if I could have Tom, is it Golden?
Here, Tom.
I'll be very, very quick. But it does my heart so much good to see what's happening today. And I'll tell you why it doesn't so much good. I've been a therapist for about 30 years, over 30 years. I work primarily with men in crisis, boys in crisis. And I've learned a lot over the years. One of the first things I learned real early was that man's pain is taboo. I worked with this fellow whose entire family died in a house fire. And he was talking. And he looked at me. He said, do you really want to hear this? I was shocked. Do you really want to hear this? It taught me a powerful lesson. Man's pain is taboo. He did not think that he had a voice. He did not think that others thought he should have a voice. His voice was muted. And many of the other men that I worked with since then, the same thing. There's no place for them to go. There's no place where they get compassion, such as being pushed as AVfM. All the people out there looking for ways to find compassion and choice to men. Because men really don't have much compassion, and they don't have a voice. And the legislators, you think that there'd be lots of men there, you think men would get a voice, right? Nope. They're there to serve women. Where else? In the academia? Do men have a voice? No. Indeed not. They're there to serve women. And family court is another one. What happens there? Men don't have a voice. In the media, men don't have a voice. Where's the one place that men have a voice? The internet, and guess who started it? Mr. Elam, and we can thank him for that. Thank you very much, Paul. Can we have Dan Perrins? Welcome.
Danny boy! How you doing, folks? My name is Dan Perrins from Hamilton, Ontario. I write for Ontario Voice Bank. Try and cover it as much as I can. And I'm an MRA because in 2009, February, when I reported crimes to a desk sergeant in Hamilton that were committed against me by an ex-girlfriend, I was told to suck it up. They don't intend to enforce the law. And I'd just like to say to that police officer, you can suck it up now. I'm talking to him.
Thank you, Danny Boy. If we could now have Suzanne. Welcome, Suzanne.
Sus!
Hi there. I don't really have a lot to say. I didn't prepare anything. I got into this movement because I have a son, and I'm concerned about his future, and it is absolutely amazing to come here, and I feel like I've found my family. People say what they think, they're honest, and they're telling the truth. And I haven't heard a lot of truth the last 30 or 40 years. So let's keep this going.
Thank you, Sus!
Thank you. I'm just going to take a half of a minute to try to patch in. We have a message here from Dr. Warren Farrell. Just bear with me for a moment.
Hi, I'm Warren Farrell. Many of you know that for years, when I served on the board of directors of the National Organization for Women in New York City, that I led the men's support section of the Women's Strike for Equality. That was in the early 70s. At that time, a woman who wished to enter medical school or law school or play high school sports or get a PhD was fraught with limitations of opportunity. I'm proud of what feminists accomplished and proud of my tiny drop of contribution to that ocean. Fortunately, things have changed. Unfortunately, Canada has developed bureaucracies of equity that act as if things haven't changed. For example, in 1970 in Canada, men were 62% of Canada's undergraduates. Today, women are 62%. Today, Canadian girls score 32 points higher than boys in reading, obviously one of the greatest predictors of success. Canadian boys are ahead of girls only in areas that are every parent's nightmare: autism, Asperger's, ADHD, behavior problems, delinquency, drinking, drugs, addiction to video games, dropping out of high school. Yes, 2/3 of Canada's high school dropouts are our sons. Today, throughout all the industrialized world, our sons are in crisis. In the U.S., our sons go from, at the age of 9, committing suicide equally to girls, to, as they learn the male role in their 20s, committing suicide 5 times as often as girls. By the age of 85, our grandfathers commit suicide more than 1,600% as frequently as our grandmothers. Today, women's opportunities in men's world of work have changed, even as men's opportunity in women's world of parenting have remained stagnant. I was really shocked when I did the research for Father and Child Reunion. I was shocked at how crucial dads are, and especially after divorce. Yet as I've done expert witness work throughout the United States and Canada, I constantly see tears from dads who want to give their children the love they need, yet encounter a court system that gives moms the right to children, but forces dads to fight for children. Students who are inexperienced in reality are today entering universities with women's studies, but no men's studies, with women's centers without men's centers, learning about domestic violence against women, but not men, a la the late Earl Silverman. They learn to associate being educated with being shamed. They don't learn about love, but about hate. Hatred that runs so deep that ironically any woman or man who dares question it is called hateful. Thus, the Canadian Federation of Students has declared that groups that try to articulate a sensitivity to men's issues on campus are men's rights groups, and that a men's rights group is ipso facto hate speech, and thus they deprive male-positive groups of student funding, they even deprive them of tables to recruit on campus, and allow no funding to promote activities. Bottom line, what all this amounts to is silencing the silent sex. Never in Canadian or U.S. history has articulating the needs of a group been called hate speech. Even when women at Ryerson University wish to create a group that is male positive as well as female positive, they are not encouraged and financed, they are silenced even before their mouths are opened. Worldwide, the bureaucracies of equity have become the bureaucracies of inequity. When I wrote The Myth of Male Power, I hoped that the articulation of men's issues would be heard by at least some of my feminist colleagues. But the few who have also been silenced. Feminist power in universities, like all absolute power, corrupts absolutely. This rally has more than a right to create a check and balance to absolute power. It has a duty. What specifically is that duty? The duty, for example, to sue. Yes, sue any university that uses taxpayer money to shut the mouths of men and women who value their fathers, who value our sons and value the future of family enough to call our attention to the crisis facing our sons. University feminist absolute power is doing more than violating your rights. They are violating your son's rights and the right of your son to be a dad. It is your mandate to provide the leadership to raise young men that our daughters will be proud to love.
All right, folks, we are back on the air. I don't know if Toronto was able to get the entirety of that.
I just talked to Dean. He said that they did listen to his speech, and I told him to call in as soon as it was over. He did say that there was some problems with the counter-protesters. I'm not quite sure what all the details are, but he said he would call back in. So okay. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Well, not surprising because Adam pretty well challenged them on the issue of our support for gay men.
I'm glad that gets brought up because gay men. This is so true, and I hope, and I try to tell this to all my gay friends. Feminists are not your friends. For any gay people who are listening right now, and really gay men, especially gay men, need to understand this. Feminists are not your friends.
Can I give you an example?
Sure.
Okay, I was up in the north of England, where I'm a patron to one of the domestic violence forums, and we were talking about the possibility, because there are no refuges for gay men or women, about the fact that it should be perfectly possible for a refuge to open that would specifically deal with the problems of gay people and transsexual people. And it was so interesting because the gay men were very happy with that. So were the transsexuals. But it was the gay women who refused to have anything to do with men. And that ended the whole effort that we were trying to make. I think you have to remember, and I have had my run-ins in many, many years with the gay women's movement, side of the movement. That is a pathological hatred of men. And I think people shouldn't be fooled by anything else.
This is interesting because I have a lot of lesbian friends as well. I have a lot of lady friends who are homosexual.
Yeah.
And of course, not all of them hate men. I mean, a lot.
No. I'm talking about the very radical element.
It's amazing how feminism has used sexuality in this regard. Obviously, a lesbian is not going to relate to men the same way that a heterosexual woman is going to relate to men. And it's amazing how they have used this in a very, very psychopathic way to create a hardcore group, if you will.
Yeah.
And we see this with the RadFem Hub. It's crazy. It's like their sexuality is part of their hate, and that's very, very, that's evil. I guess I don't know if there's another way to put that.
But they're heavily embedded in most of the universities across the Western world. And when I was in America, there were big communes of radical lesbian women. And in those days, if a woman gave birth to a boy, he had to be given away. Or if she knew she was giving birth to a boy, she had to abort, or she couldn't stay in the communes. These are very powerful women. I mean, they have big positions in society.
Oh yeah, well that's what when we exposed the RadFem Hub, we were amazed that these weren't just crazy cat ladies writing articles up in their attic and interacting.
That's right. Yeah.
These people were they were influential lawyers, they were influential publishers, they were influential activists. These were people who had very, very strong voices and very influential spots in government and in business. And they were serious. These people were dead serious about what they were talking about. It's you read it and you think it's a joke. It's not a joke. These people really, truly, it's every bit as hateful as the KKK or the Nazis or the skinheads. Every bit. And what makes it even more scary is that people don't recognize it for what it is.
Just out of curiosity, Mike, did you have an opportunity to review the Agent Orange files?
No, I didn't.
You might want to get your copy. And for any of our listeners out there, you can get a copy. There's two versions. The original is hosted by Anti-Misandry, and it's found with a simple search. The other one is hosted by AVfM under the article title Happy Birthday RadFem Scum. So pick up one or the other copy. And I'll it will make the hair stand up on the back of your neck when you realize that these are people who advocate literally turning men into glue and setting vectors for the reduction of Y chromosomes inside the male zygote. We've got Dean on the line again, and we're bringing him on immediately. Hello, Dean.
Actually, no, you don't have Dean. You have Danny Boy. How you doing,
Danny.
folks?
All right.
We're live here. We have a little bit of a counter protest. I don't know if you've been told that already. Back Toronto. The Baboon Brigade, I've called them. Low sloping forehead, low thought process. They don't seem to get the message that men's rights are human rights.
What's going on with them right now?
Well, they're just taking little pot shots, making toddler comments. They're just acting like spoiled little children.
What was their reaction to what Adam had to say?
Well, they kind of walked away when that happened, and since they were kind of heading off into a westerly direction, I wanted to help them out a little bit, so I twisted the speakers towards the west, make sure they got the message.
Right.
And they quieted down and retreated. They didn't say much else.
So after that, they just came right back using the same rhetoric that they were using before?
Pretty much, yeah, taking pot shots, lying about things, And I'd like to point out, I don't know if you can hear this, but they're doing actual work on the Parliament buildings here in Toronto. Can you hear that through the radio?
No, we can't.
Okay, well, it looks like it sounds like they're resurfacing the brick, but they're up at least 50, 60, 70 feet. Those would be part of that 94% of the workplace deaths and casualties that happen. And these are what these baboons are being bigots about, because that's what we talk about. We talk about the issues that the fact that men make up 94% of all workplace deaths and injuries, 97% of all military deaths and casualties or injuries, 50% of the domestic violence, and a whole slew of other issues. But it just seems really, really ironic that here we have a high-risk job where men tend to take it up and tend to die in it and help make up that 94% of deaths and casualties, and they're sitting there down at the end, about 50 feet away, and they're, like I said, the baboon brigade.
So they're really not doing anything then.
Not really. I recognize a few faces from their Facebook page.
Who is speaking right now, Dan?
Pardon? Oh,
Who's
Walter
speaking?
Fox is speaking. Walter Fox is speaking. Walter Fox is an Ontario lawyer, and
let's hear what he's got to say. Take the phone over there and hold it up.
We'll get you on that. Yeah.
We see it as a situation where people can cooperate and share. Our friends down the road see this as a zero-sum game. And today they have suffered a stunning political defeat. We've gathered here. They can't intimidate us. It's their view. They're wrong, but it's their view that if they're not on top and they're not in charge and they're not dictating everything, they've lost. Today, they've lost dramatically. This is the beginning of something new that our friends down the road who are supporters of the hammer and sickle, some of them are probably queers against Israeli apartheid and support the Bashir regime in Syria and will support the Muslim Brotherhood. They've taken a massive loss today because we're here. They even attempted to designate a war memorial, which allows all of us to speak here. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Again, that was Walter Fox. And it's going to get up and say a couple more words, too.
Just one more thing to add to the protesters who say our daughters are ashamed of us. My daughter had to do a course called Theory of Knowledge, which is critical thinking, for her international baccalaureate requirements. And one of the major projects that she did was a verbal presentation, an oral presentation on violence against men, how it is ignored, how it is laughed at, how nobody does anything about it, especially when it is a woman committing the violence. She got 95% in that course and 100% on that project. And her teacher said, after she was done, that if it had been a boy saying those things at the front of the class, nobody would have believed him, nobody would have cared. I think my daughter is plenty proud of what I do. In fact, I know she is. Attila, where'd you go?
Did you guys hear all that?
I want to thank each and every one of you that has partaken in this historic event, a gathering that will be remembered and looked upon historically when hopefully, actually not even hopefully, the day when we don't have to have rallies like this to fight for the rights of men and boys who are clearly in crisis. I want to thank each and every one of you, and I encourage you to tell your friends that we need to pay attention to the well-being of men, boys, fathers, uncles, grandparents. I especially want to thank my father, Peter, and my two sons, Peter and Ryan, for supporting this very important event. Thank you.
Hello, guys. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Oh, beautifully. Wherever Danny Boy chose to stand and however he held up that phone, those last two speeches came in beautifully.
All right. Well, we're learning. This is a first for everybody. This is a first in history, and we're learning how to do it better all the time. The speakers are done. We are taking the speakers down, and now the crowd is milling around.
I have to say something. I have to say that the quality of the speakers was quite good. They said the right thing. Everybody said the right things. Everybody was very articulate, and it was it really was a show of speaking excellence, I think, on everyone's part. I think everyone did a great job.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I
agree.
Say, Warren
Everybody
Farrell's
has done a great
speech.
job.
Mm.
Go ahead, Erin.
Warren Farrell's speech brought me out in goosebumps because I know that this show is actually put into archives. I think that is one of the best speeches I've heard on behalf of men and boys ever.
You know, there were a lot of people at that bashback group who were screaming that our daughters should be ashamed of what should be ashamed of us. I don't know if you heard what Karen Strong said in response to that about her daughter, but it was quite moving.
Yes, I did. We heard it loud and clear. I think that's absolutely the opposite happens. I think when the daughters grow up, they'll be so ashamed of those mothers that are out there screaming.
So, I'm not sure what to tell anybody right now about what's going to happen next, if we're just going to keep talking or what. I'm seeing a shocking number of people here showing up with T-shirts about men's rights. Hang on just a minute, please. Somebody really wants me.
I gotta say your speech was amazing, very powerful, and moving. It was excellent. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
And that was Dean, folks. Dean Esme. He's our number one guy at AVFM, and really want to thank him, and thank you, August, for helping Dean to make sure that he had everything he needed to bring us the word. Hopefully, we'll hear back from him. We are going to be staying on the air for a while longer. But for now, I think we need a moment of reflection. And we're going to do that with a short music break.
Hello.
All right.
Can
Yes,
anybody
we
hear
are.
me?
We are alive. We are live. And Dean, go ahead.
Well, actually, I'm just milling about the crowd and seeing what people have to say. And I just met somebody here called 3rd of October, and she wants to say hello to Erin.
Well, unfortunately, Erin just left us during the music break.
That's all right. That's all right.
So she's.
You can tell her I appreciate what she's doing.
Absolutely. I'll be sure to pass that message along.
I think what she's doing is good work. You guys are doing a great work. I love your shows a lot.
Tell us about yourself. What brought you to the rally?
Well, mostly I used to have a roommate who was pretty suicidal, so I had to call the hospital for him to make sure he got better. I worry about him. So it's people like him that I think of, and that, in a way, some of my own growing up, I wish that there had been people who helped me. And you got these guys here that said that nobody wants to help them. I can sympathize. You know what I mean? Hello?
Oh, yes. We hear you loud and clear.
Yes, it's just sad. It shouldn't be this way. It should not be necessary to hold a rally to make it known that men have issues. It should be obvious.
Well, unfortunately, we are dealing with 60 years of feminist discourse silencing the issues in favor of gaining social and political power.
Well, they're not going to be doing much for that for much longer, because the more stunts they pull, the more they reveal themselves. And
yeah, that's true. That's true, and we were very surprised nobody showed up last night.
I thought your fan club would have shown up.
Well, we do appreciate the call. Thank you very much, and I will be sure to let Erin know.
Yes, and I will catch the show when I get back home.
Wonderful.
If I don't catch it when it's live, I'll catch it when it's on demand. Hello?
Yes, great. Thank you so much for talking with us. And thanks for showing your support. It was really, really great that you were there.
Yes, I am.
Great.
I'm thinking of that old Gandhi quote. What is it? They first ignore you, right? Where are we at? Are we at laugh at you or attack you? Or is it both?
Well, it's both, I think. I think we're somewhere in between.
And then you win.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just add that? It's my favorite quotation. First they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they fight you, then you win.
That's how it works.
I think you guys are very close to winning.
So let's hope so. Let's hope we don't have too much more work to do. We appreciate
it's worthy work, whatever it is. Yes?
Yes, it is. All right, great. Can you put Dean back on the line for us, please?
I can if I can figure out where he got up to.
Oh, see, he ran off.
He's not. I can't figure out where he is.
Oh.
I have to find.
Well, tell us what's going on there now.
I'll give you the Danny, and he can find Dean.
Okay, cool.
Here you go.
How you doing, guys?
Hey, Danny, tell us about the press presence there. Are there any news crews there? I mean, I understand.
Our buddy's Vice was here.
Who was there?
Vice, how they called us. Vice?
Oh, yeah. I remember Vice. Yes.
Yes, Vice was here, and they're here talking and taking things and pictures and whatnot. I actually defended Vice because I went down and approached the protesters and asked them a couple of questions, like I do, and the police tried to push Vice back, say go back, back this far. I said, are you trying to push around the journalists here? Because that is a protected right under Section 2, Charter Rights and Freedoms, and I don't think the police really liked it too much. But it is the truth, and everybody deserves their rights. I don't care.
Why were the police doing that? Do you know? Was there a reason why the police were
just trying to defuse the situation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's all they were trying to do.
Anybody else besides Vice covering there?
I believe there are some other people here. I haven't. Ryerson Student Union's here.
Okay, great.
Some
any words from them?
As well.
Okay, yeah. Any words from the Ryerson Student Union? Is it, what are they making any noise? What are they doing?
They didn't. No, they were just taking pictures, doing reporting, which is great, awesome.
Okay.
We've got our copies too, so that's all fine, all's fair. And they actually got a picture of me. Now I have a vintage women's rights pin from 1975, way back when it starts to go sideways. And I believe in women's rights, the right to be treated equally and held responsible equally. Unfortunately, these twits didn't really like my sign. They didn't really catch that I had the this pin, and it's from 1975. So that was kind of comical, and they threw a few bigoted remarks. Par for the course with them.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Things are slowing down. Karen's talking to Raven. People are shaking hands. Vladek Filler's here. Did you guys talk to Vladek yet?
No, put him on.
Vladek. The radio.
Hello.
Hi, Vladek. How are you? This is Bob O'Hara, news director, and James Huff is the radio director. We're here on AVfM Radio, and glad to hear your voice.
Yeah, we are joined by Mike Buchanan from the UK. Say hello, Mike.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
So
greetings.
Hi.
Thank you for inviting me to come and show my support for call for compassion for boys and men, and I'm very happy to be here.
Great. Well, did you have a good time? I mean, how have you been there for a couple of days now, or?
We came up here yesterday. We just came up here yesterday. Late afternoon, and we came here for this event. I made a brief presentation, and we're about to head back to the States.
Right. So you're living in Georgia now, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Great. How's your family doing?
Well, my family's doing as well as can be expected.
Right. Sure.
I guess that's a very relative thing, but yes, they're doing well, and always could be worse.
Right. Sure. Well, I'm sure you could appreciate that probably better than most people. So you were really part of an historic moment today. Was your impression that other people felt the same way, that this is really a historic moment? Do you think that even the people that our opponents felt the same way, or what was the feeling in the air in that respect?
I think that everyone here, there was a sense that this is indeed a very historic moment. It was a very historic gathering. It was an unprecedented gathering from what people have come up and stated, and there's also a lot of there's a lot of positivity. The crowd who came in support of compassion for boys and men is a very peaceful and very well informed crowd, and there was very positive energy here. And of course, there was opposition that showed up and protesting various issues, which I'm not sure how they apply to what this rally was all about. With a megaphone while people were making presentations, they were screaming, that we were here for somehow against the transgender community. And I think I've noticed some people were wearing clothing and some hammering.
We
just
lost our connection. Wearing clothing with a hammer, and Mike, I can only assume he was going to finish that up with and sickle. And we've seen a very interesting bent, especially in the Toronto area, of publicly identifying with the more socialist aspect of the political nature when dealing with gendered issues. So What do you think about this?
What do I think about it?
Mike.
I'm sorry, about Toronto.
Well, yeah, up in Toronto, there's been a lot of movement with the combination of feminism and socialism, and as Vladek Filler just informed us, some of the crowd of protesters were openly wearing a hammer and sickle.
Yeah, yes, it's interesting. At the national conference here in the UK just a couple of days ago, there was a guy from the Socialist Workers' Party, a young guy, mid to late 20s maybe, and he was kind of saying that even in the Socialist Workers' Party, they're kind of recognizing that men and boys have been assaulted by the state for decade after decade, and there's a consciousness building up even in the far left, which I think is kind of important.
Well, the question at the end of the day is ultimately going to end up being, how do we solve it? We are just in the phase of letting everyone know that there's a problem. I think the next great step, the next great argument, is going to end up being, how do we solve it? Is it going to be through government policy? Is it going to be through grassroots activism? Is it going to be through altering the way children are taught in schools? I mean, we've got a lot of questions that remain unanswered.
But it's at the end of the day, I mean, we have in our consultation document, as I say, 20 areas where the state assaults men and boys through its actions and inactions. And so the question is really then, how do you stop the state doing that? And the only way that I can see that we stop the state doing that is by making it politically unacceptable to go in that direction. And the way we're trying to do that is by mounting challenges against the marginal seats of the most anti-male party, whoever that is, whichever that is, at the general election, so that they know there is a price to pay for being anti-male, because at the moment there is no price to be paid politically. None.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that there's no doubt that we are entering into we're going to have to enter into a more political phase.
Yeah.
And what you say about making politicians, and the same can be said here in the U.S. Senators and congressmen on Capitol Hill, they pay no consequences whatsoever when they pass things like VAWA and they strip men of due process, and they've done this carte blanche for decades now. For decades they've done this, and it seems, I think, up until now, a lot of fathers' rights groups, and I'm not going to say names, and some other groups have been very, very hesitant to become aggressive in targeting politicians, targeting their campaigns, going to their home states and educating and talking to their constituents and saying, look at what this person is doing. You need to take him out of office, because things are not going to change. Things are not going to change here in the U.S. or in the U.K. unless either members of Parliament or some members in the U.S. House of Representatives or the Senate start losing their seats because of being anti-male, because of being pro-feminist. They're not going to get the picture, because there's so much money and so much political power involved. You need to take the political power away from them by getting them out of there. And now, trust me, if you do this, if just one head rolls over anything like this, they're going to snap to it real quick. That's how politicians are. That's how democracy works, unfortunately.
It is, and I think the money will then roll in. I mean, we're still at the stage at the moment that people are thinking, well, do I donate? Because I'm not sure this is going anywhere. But as soon as, I think it'll take one or two small victories, and I think people are going to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, already on the state level here in the U.S., we're having some victories. In Massachusetts, not too long ago, they did away with lifelong alimony and did a lot of reform down there. And in Florida, the legislature.
Guys, I'm breaking in here. Looks like we've got looks like we've got our on-the-ground correspondent available to us. Hey, Dean.
It's Dean one more time. I know we're about out of time. I got a camera crew who wants to talk to me and to Karen and a few others. The rally is over. It went off spectacularly well. I think that the next time, and there will be a next time, we'll have an even better and more reliable hookup. And I want to thank everybody who listened. I want to thank you guys for being there and for improvising while we sat here trying to get through to you.
Well, Dean, we thank you, and let the speakers know at the rally that AVfM Radio thanks their work, and that our listeners certainly appreciate what is going on.
Expect to see more of this on YouTube. Peace out, guys. Gotta go.
Bye. All right, Dean. Thanks a lot for everything.
And there we have it, folks. The end of something beautiful.
Yeah, truly, we really did see a historic moment today. And this seems very small and trivial. It's not. This is a big deal, and like Dean said, there's going to be more of this in the future, and it's going to get bigger and better every single time. And like what we were just saying about politics, people are going to have to. The press itself, just the press, they're already being forced at this moment, right now, as we speak. They're being forced to recognize what's going on. They have to start talking to us now. They have to start giving us airtime, because we truly have, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so proud of working with A Voice for Men. A Voice for Men, more than any other people, and I really think that we can take credit for this. We have really, really cracked the nut of the public discourse as far as feminist dominance over it, concerning all things gender. It's over now for them in that regard. And of course, we had lots of help from a lot of people, but now the cat's out of the box. Now it's out for good. You can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. It's out. And this rally solidified that fact in a way that could not have been done any other way. I don't think.
I think that. One other thing might actually solidify this, and that would certainly be a win for Mike Buchanan.
Yes, absolutely.
And one of the things I wanted to touch upon was the family court systems and the type of legislation, the type of edicts that are ongoing with the family court systems over there in the UK. Mike, can you fill us in on what things are like and where you would like your party to take it?
Yeah, well, one of our candidates for the next general election is a guy called Ray Barry. Now, Ray Barry heads up his own political party called the Equal Parenting Alliance. A wonderful guy, and he's decided to stand for us next time, I'm very pleased to say, and he drew up the equal parenting elements of our document. He's personally the victim. Well, I think he's in touch still with one of his 3 adult children, the other 2 having been alienated against him. And the court system is brutal to men. I mean, I don't know of another word. I was reading the other day that the suicide rate among men following breakdown of long-term relationships is very nearly 10 times higher than that among women. And, I still have to research this, but my strong suspicion will be that that's because of denial of access to children of those fathers. And the state does everything. I mean, there are signs that it might be starting to change, but certainly at the moment, the state does virtually nothing to stop women who are determined to destroy the relationships of their children with their fathers, and stopping access to them from doing so. The courts will if a man spends a huge amount of money, he'll get a contact order, but if his ex-partner frustrates it, there's 1,000 ways to do that. the courts will not punish her. I mean, very few, in a very few cases, judges make it clear that they will jail the woman in question. But that's a tiny minority of judges, and the rest of them clearly take the attitude, well, the important thing is the relationship with the mother, and if this is all making the mother unhappy, and thereby damaging the child, then we have to stop. Then we won't enforce that contact order, and that's a reality that women in that position know. I mean, they're taught by their solicitors to come up with false, domestic abuse charges. And in fact, I had a meeting yesterday with a local guy who had a black eye, and it turned out that his ex-wife had come around to his flat and beaten him black and blue. And I said, well, did you not respond? He said, no, I just had to take it, because if I had punched her and there was physical evidence that she'd been hurt, I don't think I'd ever see my son again. And it goes on. It's just so common. It's kind of the norm.
And we hear the same thing coming from this side of the Atlantic as well.
Yeah.
But one of the things I do want to touch on is the nature of the secret courts that you guys had or have in the UK. There's some discussion going on about the recent edicts that were drawn down to sort of open up the courts to scrutiny.
Yeah.
Back in July. Exactly what is going on with the model of the secret courts and how they are being opened up?
Yeah, I have to say I just don't have really have an insight into that. The head of the family law division, who's I can't remember his name now, basically said there has to be an end to this, to the secrecy. Light has to be shed upon it. The media has to get in there and show what's going on. And but as to the detail of that, I don't know. I mean, all too often there are good intentions stated, and somehow things bite the dust along the way. Well,
I think at this point we're going to go ahead and we are going to go ahead and open up the phones since the rally has come to an end and everything is breaking down at the rally. The guest call-in number is 310-388-9709. And at this point, we invite our listeners to go ahead and call in and ask questions of Mike Buchanan. And for now, we're going to go to a short music break.
Had me dancing on plain.
All right, we are back. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in to a special Saturday edition of AVFM News and Activism. We've had a wonderful, wonderful time listening to a few of the guest speakers at the rally up there in Toronto. It is now over, and we invite our listeners to call in, 310-388-9709. Well, Mike, I know we just recently got through talking about the court systems in Canada, but I'm also interested in some of the other points of your party's platform. Maybe you can go ahead and just take the mic and bring up those points you think are most important.
Surely. Okay, well, I'll perhaps just run you through the key issues that we have in our consultation document. It's a document that people can find online at j4mb.org.uk. And it's basically the document on which we invite feedback, and that feedback will help us draw up our first manifesto for the 2015 general election. So we've had plenty of feedback, overwhelmingly positive, I've got to say. So I'll just run through those quickly, if you like.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, the first area, our first proposal is that the government ensures that future and existing legislation doesn't discriminate or advantage men and boys, directly or indirectly. And part of the background information we give on that is that whenever there are gender biases in legislation or guidance, they always favour women and or girls at the expense of men and boys. Now, this is a particular assault on men as taxpayers, and I think we're the first people to have kind of made that link, at least in the UK. 72% of income tax in the UK is paid by men and only 28% by women. British men collectively pay £64 billion, about $100 billion more income tax annually than British women. And what the figure would be in the States, you could probably add a zero on that, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Political representation. We have a Minister for Women and Equalities. Apparently he's sort of somebody without irony there. Came up with that one. And there's no Minister for Men, so we're calling for the appointment of a Minister for Men so as to provide a focus in government for groups like ourselves. And we're also calling for the repeal of some legislation introduced in 2008 by the last Labour administration, by Harriet Harman, the evil Harriet Harman. There was no mention of this proposed legislation in the 2005 Labour Party manifesto, but the legislation allows political parties to employ all women prospective parliamentary candidate shortlists. Now get this, until 2033, 25 years. To his eternal shame, David Cameron used that legislation, or he proposed to use that legislation just before the last general election to appoint candidates, but he was shamed out of it in the end, I'm pleased to say. But I actually left the Conservative Party, for whom I'd once worked, that very day he made his announcement to use these lists. And I was told that plenty of other members also left the same day for exactly the same reasons. Education is a tricky area, but I don't know if this is true in the States, but The overwhelming majority of primary school teachers in the UK are women, and in fact, quite a strong majority of secondary school teachers. I'm not quite sure what your terms are for those, but these very feminized schools. You think, boys in particular, they something like 1 in 4 children are now being brought up by a single mother. So they have a feminized environment at home. They go to schools run by women, and they're very often, whenever they show gender typical characteristics such as boisterousness, they're deemed troublesome. And there's been an absolutely astonishing increase in the number of boys prescribed. I think the main one is Ritalin to combat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But at the end of the day, ADHD, to a lot of people in the field, is simply a response to being expected to act like girls, and it's damaging. It's incredibly damaging to boys' self-esteem. There was a program just the other day in which they had a very aggressive girl pupil, I think about 13 or so, 12 or 13, and she was regarded. Well, they kept on using terms like she was characterful, and there was a boy who was very occasionally aggressive, and he was sent to anger management classes with a sort of with a big female teacher.
So certainly the you go girl and shut up, you're being too aggressive boy,
yeah.
Right? Yeah,
that's right. And in fact, the two of them actually had a conflict one day, where she said something quite nasty and to the boy, and he reacted. And when her teacher was asking the girl about the incident, just the two of them alone, she said, I had a report that you stood on his head. Is that right? And she said, I can't remember, miss. And then 5 minutes later on the program, she said to somebody, yeah, I did stand on his head. And she's regarded as just a character. And even the male headmaster, who is generally pretty sound, you can just see the deference that even he, a very strong guy, shows towards the female pupils. It's quite incredible. So it's not just the female teachers that if you like, giving a pass to the girls and hammering the boys. It's the male teachers as well. And I guess any male teacher that tried to stand up for the boys wouldn't last too long. It'd be
he wouldn't have much of a career.
No, it would be it would just be a crippling environment to work in, I suspect.
And that is why I suspect you don't find very many male teachers in primary and secondary education roles.
No, indeed so, and we have exactly the same situation with regard to university graduates. In fact, in some cases, I think it's about 60% of graduates these days are women. But in some fields which they really favour, it's over 70%. So in medicine, for example, over 70% of students have been are women. And it's led to a crisis in the NHS, a real crisis, because this has been going on for many years. But as a guy called Dr. Vernon Coleman was pointing out 30 years ago, the drive to push up the proportion of women in medicine was, would have disastrous consequences. And so it's proved, because female doctors are far more likely than male doctors to quit the profession. They're far more likely to work part-time than men. They're far less likely to be willing to work on social hours. They don't like the stressful environment, particularly accident and emergency. And huge. It's an incredibly inefficient organization anyway. But the feminization of it has been a disaster, and it costs £250,000. So what would that be? I guess coming towards $400,000 to train a doctor. And the government solution to the crisis is to train more doctors. Well, you can bet 70% of those will be female again, and even a conservative-led, administration, just will not recognise the elephant in the room, in this as in every other area.
Well, we've got a caller, Night Runner. I think he wants to talk about the rally for a moment.
Yes.
Go ahead, Night Runner.
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going wonderful.
How you doing?
Just a quick question. What do you guys think about the fact that the feminists seem to have thrown their third string at us? And what do you think that means?
I think, and Erin Pizzey talked about this a little bit earlier on. I think that they've realized, first they've realized that the way that the feminists have always gotten the most traction has been from behind the scenes, by playing politics, by getting the media in their pocket. I think they're going to kind of rally into those areas now. They're going to, I think, what we're going to see is we're going to see a lot more gamesmanship going on, especially in the media. You're going to see moves that they're going to try to mischaracterize what happened in Toronto and what we're all about, or you're just going to see the media trying hard to ignore us altogether. Of course, they can't. But I think that they've effectively, whenever they've come out en masse and showed themselves at these demonstrations, they've made complete jackasses out of themselves. And you said that was the third string. I think that the first two strings realize that, and that they're not going to make those same moves. I think we'll continue to see things like this. You'll continue to see, meatheads with bullhorns and holding banners and saying all kinds of stupid things whenever we come together and do this type of thing. But the real action is going to happen in the newsrooms and in our legislatures, I think. That's what I think. That's how I interpret it.
And I would agree with that assessment. Night Runner, thank you for calling in. Do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. And James Buchanan, keep up the good work, brother. We're pulling for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. We're going to bring somebody we really haven't heard from in quite some time. Dr. T, welcome to the show.
Hi, James. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm as happy as a cat with a great big bowl of milk right now.
I know. I would have popped a bottle of champagne this morning to listen to the show, but I have a therapy session starting in 10 minutes with another man who is the victim of false domestic violence charges that his wife filed in order to get a tactical advantage in court, and who hasn't seen his children in close to 4 months. So I think today's rally is both historic and long overdue and much needed, and I am so proud to be affiliated in even the tiniest way with everything AVfM is doing.
Well, your work represents part of what it is to be a ground pounder, in my opinion. Because you're
great.
I mean you're in the thick of it, and you are working with the men who need it the most. So thank you.
And thank you for everything you're doing, and my best to everyone who's there and who's not there and listening. And I'm also a little ticked at myself that I wasn't able to be there today, and if at all possible, I'm going the next time you guys do this. I think Vancouver in the springtime would be magnificent.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, I have every intention of bringing Blog Talk Radio live to the listeners from the location next time things happen.
That sounds great. All right, I'm going to get going and get ready for my session. Just so proud of everyone.
Well, thank you, Dr. T, and I will be sure to pass those sentiments along.
All right. Bye, guys. You have a great weekend and enjoy the post-rally glow.
I am.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, Care.
Okay, we've got one more caller. Let's bring on a dear friend of mine. Iron John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, James. and Bob and Mike Buchanan for taking my call today. And yes, we are dear friends, at least I consider us to be. Not friends with Mike Buchanan yet, but boy, I really like the things he's doing. And Mike, I would like to be your friend too.
Consider it done. Consider it done.
Wonderful. Bob, we're already friends as well.
How you
and
doing,
as
Jeff?
a friend, yes, of course. And as a friend to both of you, I would like to say that I am just beside myself. I'm speechless. What a wonderful moment for the men's rights movement. But I can't help but wonder what this will mean now for us. How will this change things for the movement? What will be different in the future because of today? Do you guys have any opinion?
Yes, actually I do. I see this as an inspirational moment. I see that there are going to be men in cities all over North America, at the very least, who are going to recognize, hey, I can actually put my feet on the ground and gain traction. And we're going to start seeing more groups like Men's Rights Edmonton pop up. We're going to see more groups like MRA London pop up. They're realizing now, what have they really got to be afraid of? What have they really got? Now, granted, I think there are still going to be some men who are reticent because of whatever professional position they might hold to actually put their faces out there. But then there's going to be people like me who are simply going to take the plunge, and they're going to be the ones to get the financial support of those individuals who don't want to actually put their face out there. And they're going to be hitting the ground, and they're going to be hitting it hard. And they're going to be changing things inside their own communities.
It's important to note that both are important. Both the people who donate money and people who actually do things they're both two sides of the same coin. Pun intended. And I think to answer your question, maybe in a broader sense, I think what this means is that this means bigger and better things in the future. What James said was absolutely true. It's going to inspire more people to act. It's going to inspire more people to just speak out, even on a small level. I think we're going to see a lot less trepidation amongst men to start talking about their own issues when they realize that, hey, there is a movement going on here, and I have people speaking for me, and I can speak for myself now. Not 3 years ago, and even it's still true today, but nowhere near as it was 3 years ago. 3 years ago, you couldn't say you were a men's rights activist without being scared of losing your job. It was. I remember when I first started getting into this. It was really like you were a freak, and people were scared to talk about these issues as men, talking about their problems. That's all changed now. Or it's changing very rapidly now.
Right.
And I think even just in the past 6 months, we've seen a real, with Erin Pizzey joining us, and now Warren Farrell, and a lot of people just publicly affiliating with the Voice for Men and the men's rights movement, not just the Voice for Men, but a lot of other groups, and people like Mr. Buchanan. It's becoming. I think things are gonna. I hope things will accelerate now in the right direction. So I think that nothing but good will come of this. That's what I think, and that's what makes it so
totally agree.
exciting.
I think if you look at any groups which at one time sort of kept below the radar and denied. I mean, you take atheists, gays. We've just introduced gay or conservative-led coalitions just introduced gay marriage in the UK with very little opposition, actually, with very little opposition. And I'm a lifelong atheist, and I remember 30 years ago, people would draw breath. They'd be astonished that anyone would admit to being an atheist in the UK. Today, people draw breath when if you say you're a church-going Christian. That says probably too much about the UK, but But it's just it's how things do change over the decades. They really do.
Right. And hopefully by the time I'm 70 or so, I'll be able to look back and actually see the way things have moved along the way.
I cannot for the life of me see how this just cannot accelerate. As much, I spend a lot of time like you guys thinking about this, and I wouldn't like to be in the feminist shoes right now, because they kind of know there's a tsunami on the way, and they can stamp their bloody feet, but it's the tsunami. They can stand on the shoreline, and that tsunami's not going to go away.
No, it certainly isn't. And one other thing that I think it's important to address is look at our comedians.
Yeah.
Look at our comedians, because the jesters throughout history have always been able to say what the common man has not.
Yes.
It is a rare day that the jesters have their heads cut off.
No, you're quite right. No, I'm personally huge. I mean, I'm a big comedy fan, and a big fan in particular of Bill Burr and Jim Jeffries. And one of the things that always strikes me in when you see their videos is that the women in the audience get it as well.
Sure.
They just love the honesty. The departure from the narrative that all women are saints. They know it, but they in their everyday lives they have to sort of try and maintain that crazy narrative.
Right. And these comedians are not going to come out and they're not going to identify as belonging to the men's rights movement or being MRAs, but their commentary on the issues hold that grain of truth in a way that makes people walk away from the show thinking about what's really going on in the world. And you can't cut their head off. I mean, first off, they've got the free speech issues, and then on top of that, they've got the popularity of their fans.
No, I think you're quite right, and I think we'll see more and more of them. I think we'll see people like Bill Burr and Jim Jeffries
and
becoming huge.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be huge.
Absolutely. And I still remember watching Eddie Murphy way back in the day. Talking about some of the issues, but his audience got it. But you look at the number of times he was labeled as a misogynist by the women's groups at that time, and you just don't hear it quite as much as you used to, coming from Bill Burr and Jim Jeffries and Joe Rogan. I mean, they've been attacked, but there's now more than ever the voices of their assemblies are standing up for the speech that they're putting out there, and so there's this counter protest by the fans, essentially saying, "You guys have no idea what the hell you're talking about if you're going to be sitting here and attacking these comedians for coming up with this great material." And that is something that did not happen back in the 80s, whenever we had men and women alike try to stand up and take the very real issues of divorce and family court and the interplay between men and women to the stage.
Yeah, and at some point, surely it'll have to hit mainstream TV, and when that does, boy, will the dam break.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Once we get news commentators and people open and columnists just openly and uninhibitedly speaking about these things, it's just going to mean it's going to be the death toll for feminism. It's going to be already. I believe their days are numbered. I believe that. How many days there are, I don't know. Some people say it's going to take. I know James and Paul say, well, this whole thing isn't going to turn for another 10, 15 years at least. I'm a bit more optimistic than that. I think sometime within the next 4 years, I think we're going to see some documentaries. Well, we're already going to have a documentary made about this next year, and it's being made right now as we speak. Actually, she was at this woman was at the rally today,
and we have the BBC one coming. So
yeah, right. And it's gonna right. So that's once that starts happening, it's gonna snowball.
Yeah. It will snowball, but I also think it's going to escalate on both sides. And what I mean by that is we haven't really seen the money of the feminist establishment thrown against us yet. And I'm very curious to see exactly how they are going to use that money.
Yeah.
I mean, right now they've been sending out their cronies, so to speak. We're at stage 1 of that video game, where you've got those weak ass foot soldiers running at us, and we're just knocking them down by the dozens. Eventually, we're gonna run across our boss battles, and we're gonna see that they're well moneyed, and we're gonna see that they are politically connected. We're going to see that they're socially connected. And we're going to have to take that on. And the only way that that's going to happen successfully is by continuing this snowball effect.
I think you're right, James. And I tell people this all the time. These people don't just have a lot of money. They have a whole fuck ton of money. These people have lots of money. I mean, these organizations, and I could just go down the line, Women's Law Center, SPLC, which is, let's face it, it's a feminist organization.
Emily's List, the Feminist Majority. The National Association for Women actually does not have a whole lot of money in their bank, but they still got a lot of money. And it's interesting to see now. It's interesting to see how they've used this on a big money level. Human Rights Watch put the Washington D.C. Metropolitan Police Department on the flame just earlier this year when they wrote a report, a completely messed up hit piece of a report on the Washington D.C. Police Department, saying that they were ignoring rape victims, they were mishandling rape cases, and they spent a lot of money on this report. They spent a lot of money on it, right. And it was so incompetently done. This is where we can be optimistic. It was so incompetently done, and I don't know if you read my pieces on what happened with that. It was just a joke, and the Washington, it was so much of a joke. The Washington Post, I think, was scared to really hold Human Rights Watch to the fire. But that's really, they're not competent people that we're dealing with here. I mean, a lot of them are pretty stupid, and they're not really. I don't think they quite know what to do with us. But it'll be interesting to see how they formulate a bigger response with their money. Yeah, they don't know quite what to do with us. Yet, there are. I must assume that my enemy is at least as intelligent as I am, if not more so. And I'm a relatively smart guy. So
you are, James. You're a smart guy.
So they will learn. They will alter their tactics.
Yeah, I don't want to. I certainly, you got to give credit where it's due. I mean, maybe I was too quick to say that they were completely incompetent, but what I've seen so far, I think that we can take some heart. I think because I really believe they don't know what to do with us. They don't know how to do. They don't.
Yep.
They threw the SPLC at us. That was the best thing that ever happened to us.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
Yep.
It's just and look what happened with RadFem when we blew the. Well, that's what happened when we blew the lid off.
Yeah, when we blew the lid off RadFem, we had
SPLC on.
We had a Reddit user named Little Tiger who decided to try to blow the horn on us to the SPLC because we did what we did. So
yeah.
Well, we're going to take a very short break. I've got a couple ads here that I want to be sure that everybody hears. Let me see what I can find for us. Oh, well, look at that. Here we go.
Hello, this is Fidelbogen. I don't like feminism, and I'm not shy about saying so. I don't want to argue or debate with feminism. I want to put it out of business. And on the Counter-Feminist blog, I discuss 1,000 ways, both large and small, to make this happen. Point your browser to counterfem.blogspot.com.
Denizens of Ward 8, hear me. I am Nick Redding, and I am running for City Council in Edmonton, Alberta. I represent the Patriarchy Party. Now, everyone already knows we live in a patriarchy, yet there are those who need a little reminding just who is in charge. To learn more about the patriarchy most of us already know and love, and to find out what a stronger patriarchy can mean for you, visit mensrightsedmonton.com. Remember, no matter who you vote for, the patriarchy will get in.
Oh, God. I love that audio.
Good stuff.
Well, folks, this is where we are going to call the end of the show. Wow, it's been one hell of a ride. And I'm just going to be one happy guy for the rest of the day. Mike Buchanan, thank you very much for coming on the show.
It's been a great pleasure and a privilege. And as I say, AVFM is just, you're going to go from strength to strength, and I hope the guys behind it become billionaires on the back of it.
Well, I will tell you, we've got a lot of talent here. We've got a lot of theorists. We've got a lot of excellent writers.
Yeah.
But what I hope to see in the future is the type of community outreach that really needs to happen. And I think you are going to take it. So thank you. Thank you very much. Robert, I want to thank you for joining us. I know it was kind of a quick decision.
I had to make it. I had to get here. So.
And to Erin Pizzey, who needed to go off the air. We love you, Erin. Thank you very much. And to anyone at the rally who just might happen to be listening, tell everyone, thank you. Any last words, Robert?
Take the red pill. More on the way.
Thank you. And goodbye, folks.